Our first bill is House File 1077, which is the housing budget bill. Vice Chair Olson, you are a member of the Housing Committee. Would you like to move the bill on behalf of Chair Hausman?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that House File 1077 be recommended for placement on the General Register.
Thank you. We have the bill before us. Chair Hausman, welcome to the committee. You do have an author's amendment, but if you can please tell us about your bill first, we will come back to the amendment. Chair Hausman.
Sorry, didn't unmute. Thank you, Representative Olson and Representative Moran. Having a safe and stable home is the foundation for well-being and achievement in nearly all other areas of life. Lack of stable housing has negative impacts on economic security, health outcomes, and educational achievement. This bill provides funding to a variety of programs aimed at helping produce more affordable housing in Minnesota, as well as provisions to ensure Minnesotans are safely and stably housed. More than 572,000 Minnesota households pay more than they can afford for housing. That equates to more than 1 in every 4 households in the state. In general, Minnesota is not producing housing at a level that will eliminate our housing shortage. Additionally, the current market largely builds for higher income households. Because of this, there is a projected supply gap of more than 65,000 units for renter households that are affordable at or below 30% area median income. The Housing Omnibus bill was put together with a focus on supporting Minnesotans throughout the housing continuum, the whole continuum, helping people find secure and stable housing and to prevent homelessness, increasing the amount of affordable and workforce housing statewide, and increasing access to homeownership for all Minnesotans. We received a target of $30 million, most of it being one-time funding. Obviously, that's not enough for the crisis we're facing, but we did the best we could. The programs that were funded over base, and I'll say a little more about these as I move, the Challenge Program, the Manufactured Home Park Infrastructure Grants, Workforce Homeownership Program, Homework Starts with Home, Bridges, which is the rental assistance for individuals with serious mental illness, the Homeownership Assistance Fund, the Homeownership Education, Counseling, and Training Fund, Local Housing Trust Fund, the NOAA Grant Program, Naturally Occurring Affordable Housing, I'll say a little more about that later, Lead Safe Homes, and the Shelter Provider Task Force. There are a number of bills that we incorporated into the Omnibus bill that specifically focus on bringing balance to the landlord-tenant relationship. This sentence is a really important one for you to understand. In Minnesota, evictions move quickly. We are one of only 7 states that does not require a notice before filing an eviction. We tend to think of Minnesota as leading the charge, not in this area. And so we've got some work to do. There are also a few measures related to manufactured homes, which provide some of the most affordable homeownership opportunities on the market. In addition to the bill's funding to improve park infrastructure, it also includes titling reform provisions to make it easier for owners to access traditional mortgage financing, as well as Representative Bernardi's opportunity to purchase bill, which gives people who own manufactured homes the opportunity to purchase the land their home sits on. They own the home, but not the land it sits on, when it is put up for sale, to try to prevent the land from literally being sold out from under them. What we've learned is most of these homes, when they go up for sale, are being purchased by out-of-state buyers. So this is an affordable type of home. The other affordable housing is naturally occurring affordable housing. We call it NOAA, which we are told is half the cost of building new. If we can find and save it before a developer finds it and upgrades it and raises the rents, that becomes a very, very affordable type of home. There's also a section in here establishing the Lead Safe Grant Program, which would seek to test for and remove harmful chemicals from the paint in homes all over the state, with a particular focus on areas where children experience high rates of lead poisoning. This is a bill Micah has been working on for years, and I'm proud to include that piece in this bill. While there is so much to celebrate about the work Minnesota does related to housing and homeownership, we know that outcomes in these areas don't look the same in every community. Minnesota has one of the worst racial disparities in homeownership. The programs and policies contained in this bill make critical investments to help close that homeownership gap, to prevent displacement, to ensure evictions don't unnecessarily block families from affordable housing opportunities for years, and to make sure all homes are safe. I'll say just a bit more about a few of the programs that where we're increasing funding. The Challenge program, the goal of this program is to help provide the workforce housing needed to enhance economic development. Homework Starts with Home is a grant program conducted in partnership with the Minnesota Department of Education, Department of Human Services, and the Interagency Council on Homelessness. It supports collaborative efforts between schools, housing organizations, and local governments to identify, engage, and stabilize students experiencing homelessness and their families. The Homeownership Assistance Fund provides interest-free deferred loans for down payment and closing costs for income-eligible first-time buyers. Minnesota Housing is required to collect applicant demographic information on a voluntary basis to help better understand and address the disparity gap in homeownership. The Homeownership Education, Counseling, and Training Program provides homeowner education and counseling services grants to community-based organizations to help prepare a buyer for success long-term through the provision of full cycle homeownership services to low and moderate income Minnesotans that assist through all phases of purchasing and keeping a home. This includes services for new home buyers, those looking to refinance, and those at risk of foreclosure. And one more program to talk about, the one I referenced earlier, naturally occurring affordable housing. Most often are multi-unit rental properties that remain affordable for modest income households without subsidies. NOAA is the largest source of affordable housing in Minnesota, but also the one at greatest risk of redevelopment. It provides grants and loans to NOAA property owners who have a demonstrated experience owning and operating quality and well-managed affordable housing. The funds must be used to acquire and rehabilitate a NOAA property otherwise determined to be at risk of experiencing increasing rents and tenant displacement. That's just a little bit of a flavor of those areas where we are increasing the funding. And did you want to take up the amendment?
Yeah, well, thank you, Chair Hausman. Vice Chair, would you care to move the A6 Authors Amendment for Chair Hausman?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move the A6 amendment.
So the A6 is before us. Chair Hausman, could you please explain the amendment?
Thank you, Representative Olson and Representative Moran. This was a very last minute. Traveling separately is a bill that's already here in Ways and Means that provides an off-ramp for the eviction moratorium. When the eviction moratorium ends, we want to avoid chaos and mass evictions. And so there's a separate bill that provides for this. Only this weekend did we get the fiscal note for that. It's $44,000 to the Minnesota Supreme Court for increased cases. And leadership decided this weekend that they wanted to include it in this budget bill. So this is to match up with the Senate and keep it in housing. And then there's one technical sentence that was added at our House Research suggestion.
All right. Members, are there any questions on the amendment? If not, Vice Chair Olson.
Chair Moran, we do have some hands up.
Okay, let me open that up. Who do we have, Chris?
Representative Scott.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Chair Hausman, thank you for the explanation of that 44,000. It wasn't, like you said, it was last minute. We didn't hear this in the Judiciary Committee, that there was going to be funding for this off-ramp. I'm all for giving more money to the courts. I'm not sure they're going to need it based on what we're hearing from the industry is that most people are paying their rent. And so I don't know how much of a flood the courts are actually going to see. I had questions more along the lines on 1.11 through 1.14 and the new language there. And I'm wondering if the author could explain that language and why it was added.
And if
Chair
Mary
Hausman.
Mullen is on, my understanding is that is a technical amendment that she caught. So if Mary Mullen is on the phone, I would have her.
Ms. Muller, Ms. Muller.
Thank you, Chair and members. That language comes from the advocates for the bill, and they asked that it be included. It prevents, there are two provisions in the bill that are to protect, primarily were brought by university students who are experiencing difficulty with leases. And so that prevents those provisions from being waived.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we're adding policy again in a finance committee, and I'm opposed to that language. And, you know, I understand these university students, a lot of them, it's the first time they're renting and so forth, but there are a number of ways for them to get help with their leases. They even have an on-campus housing advocate that they can go see. And so I think this language is not necessary, and I will be encouraging members to vote against this amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comments and questions are to the underlying bill.
Okay. Representative Hertaus.
I would concur. My comments and questions are for the underlying bill.
All right. I would come back to both of you. If there's no other questions, Vice Chair Olson renews her motion to adopt the A6 amendment, author's amendment. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed?
No.
No.
The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Members, are there any other questions for Chair Hausman? And I think we have a couple, so I'm going to start with Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Chair Hausman, as you know, I have a great passion for housing and was just wondering a couple of things. You know, in the, I believe it was 2018 gubernatorial task force, we found that there are approximately, I think, 100,000 homes behind in the state of Minnesota. And I was wondering, are you working to address that? Are you trying to also look at the impact of things like zoning and inspection fees and various other fees as it relates to the increase of cost in housing and what that impact is to the overall marketplace and availability of housing to people who are trying to create a stable home and a stable place for themselves within the community? Because as I remember it, I believe those are fairly costly increases that get layered into the cost of a home. And for every $1,000 of increased price, it prices out 4,000 people from the market. So those are potentially heavily impact decisions that municipalities make. So just wondering if you could give me some illumination on the efforts that your committee took to address those issues.
So members, there is a school of thought driven by one particular interest group that believes if we just got rid of regulations, codes, and fees, they could build affordable housing. I will tell you the biggest opponents of that are all of the cities around the state, the League of Minnesota Cities, the Association of Metro Cities, who believe that is a very kind of shallow approach. What we believe, two of the things that I talked about as I described the bill, manufactured home parks are affordable housing, naturally occurring affordable housing that we can find and save is the least expensive housing. I'm convinced that different housing models and different ways of construction are the way to begin to close this gap. There's something called modular construction, and there is a building going up, I think it might be in St. Paul, using modular construction, a very much less expensive way to build. Tiny houses. Representative Olson has a bill that unfortunately we couldn't fund in this one. I'm hoping it gets funded in the bonding bill for a dormitory. It's kind of like the rooming house model where you have your privacy, you have your bedroom and bathroom, but then you share some mutual spaces. And the advantage of that is you live in community. You don't live in isolation. And so I'm hoping we can find a way to fund, when she presented that in committee, it was on a bipartisan basis, really strongly supported.
Representative Nash.
Yeah, well, thank you, Madam Chair and Chair Hausman. I'm going to disagree with you that it's just one single group, because I will tell you, while Housing First does advocate for this, respectfully, Chair, I've spoken to hundreds of homeowners. I've talked to hundreds of builders and various people who work in the industry adjacent to the creation of stable homes. So it's not a narrow group, Madam Chair. It is actually quite diverse and quite wide. And there have been a number of very strong pieces of research, one again from the gubernatorial task force in 2018. And I will tell you that in my district out here in Carver County, there are not a lot of what we call starter homes being built anymore. And as you begin to peel back the onion, Madam Chair, you begin to see that very often, because of zoning decisions that municipalities make and decisions that they make also as to how they handle various fees that they will levy to the homeowner, that is driving the decrease in the availability for homes. And I certainly appreciate your interest in creating tiny homes and dormitories, but that's not going to solve the issue. That is not even going to come close to solving the issue. We have to address a problem, and burying our heads in the sand and turning blithely to the two municipal interest groups who are diametrically opposed to change isn't going to help either. So, Madam Chair, I respectfully will tell you that this is not a proper approach. This is not a good approach. This is something that you're basically trying to kick the can down the road and blame people who are building homes for being greedy or being whatever else you'd like to assign to them. But those assignations fall hollow. And I know for a fact that talking to people who are outside of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, that they would like to have a nice, stable home that they can afford, that doesn't have prerequisites that effectively force them to put various things on the outside of their home or build out of certain materials. They would like the flexibility to develop on various different sizes of lots, and that the developer gets to have a bigger say in this. So again, Madam Chair, while you choose to ignore the impact of or the insight from these housing groups, just because you say it isn't true doesn't make it so. So members, I think this is short-sighted. There are families that are looking to create what I call true north in their lives. My oldest son turns 25 yesterday. He tells me regularly, Dad, I'm pleased to know that there is always that place in Waconia that I can go to that is always home. That was created and is sustained by stable housing stock. We have to build more, and we have to address the issue of fees and zoning requirements that are put forward by cities. And to not include that is exceptionally short-sighted. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Nash. Chair Hausman, I don't know if you want to respond or not. We can go on to the next.
I would say just go on to the next.
Representative Hertas.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair and members, and Representative Hausman. Thank you for your work on this bill. I I want to talk a little bit about manufactured housing, but before I do so, I just wanted to support some of the comments that Representative Nash made. And I'd like to just point out some of the intrinsic problems with the seemingly inconsequential add-ons to the requirements of building new homes and what that means for the consumer. Madam Chair and Representative Hausman, as I've mentioned in the years past, I've erected hundreds of homes in the Twin Cities, and I can speak firsthand to the changes that have occurred over the last many decades with regard to the cost of erecting new homes. I have previously mentioned the Met Council's influence on land use and the tight supply of land with regard to building homes on properties has driven the price of land in our metro region quite high. In fact, land represents nearly 30% of the cost of the home today. Madam Chair, I grew up in the first suburban ring suburb of St. Louis Park, where there was a home every 50 feet. As a developer, I can tell you that if I came into any growing fringe community, second or third suburban ring, that if I came in with a proposal to have a development with 50-foot lots and modest homes, I'd be laughed right out of City Hall. The zoning regulations are relevant, and we do little or nothing to provide opportunities for the so-called life cycle housing opportunities for people to enter the housing market. In addition, Minnesota is an outlier with regard to collecting mortgage registration tax and state deed tax on every real estate transaction, particularly residential ones, add thousands of dollars to the cost of a transaction. In addition to that, I'd like to point out some of the mortgage complexities and the qualifying ratios. When we're talking about the low rate of home ownership among minorities and the income necessary to support a new mortgage, from the real estate side, from the sales side perspective, every time you raise the price of a home $1,000, qualifying ratios using 28 or 33%, those are nomenclature within the real estate industry in terms of getting customers to be qualified. But for every $1,000, when you finance that on a 30-year mortgage, that increases the price of that home 3.5 times that cost. So a $1,000 increase over the life of the mortgage ends up being $3,000 or more. More importantly, the income necessary to support every $1,000 of additional increase in cost increases the income requirement in a manner which far exceeds the $1,000. So costs and fees and code enforcement and having special interest groups who lobby the legislature to make sure that their service or their product is included in the construction of a new home exponentially adds to the cost. So I'll end that with regard to costs. Representative Nash is exactly right about addressing this. It's an important component of lowering the cost of housing. To the manufactured housing issue, I will also tell you that communities, by and large, don't like these in their community, and they would just as soon see them out of existence. And they view manufactured housing, which I too acknowledge, Representative Hausman, is a very affordable housing opportunity other than subsidizing rents and having Section 8 housing. This is an opportunity for people at a minimum level to get started in building equity in a piece of property and to pay off that debt and be able to sell it and take that money and use it as a down payment for a home that's actually part of a neighborhood that is permanent. I've introduced legislation, and it's part of the tax bill, which lowers the underlying tax rate on manufactured home parks. And I'm happy that that's included. That was kind of all over the board with regard to different manufactured home parks. And there are about 46,000 manufactured home residents that will benefit by addressing that issue. But taxing commercial mobile home parks as commercial property and using tax rates encourage their development and getting rid of them. And that's what cities like to see. They view many of these mobile home parks as blight on their community. And that's unfortunate because there's many very high quality mobile home parks. In the bill, there's a provision that is troublesome, and that is the non-contractual right of first refusal. If a mobile home park goes up for sale, mobile home residents under this bill and under this language would have a right to intercede in a real estate transaction conferring or changing ownership of the mobile home park. Now, the problem with that is in the real estate community and in real estate brokerage, we owe a duty of confidentiality to our clients. And what this bill does is requires disclosure of the terms and conditions of that certain purchase agreement, which violates every aspect of real estate duties as far as a licensed agent. We cannot put sold on a property until it actually closes. You can't list it as sold in the MLS. And having knowledge of a pending transaction and the terms and the price and the conditions violates some of those basic duties to the client. Furthermore, I've been made aware of certain transactions that have occurred of recent where it was really a developer who used residents of a mobile home park as a wedge, if you will, to intercede in trying to compete against another developer who had a better vision of creating affordable housing and housing opportunities and diversity in a mobile home park. And I won't get into the nitty-gritty of that detail, but it was really quite troubling to see that the mobile home resident is being used as a pawn in kind of a high stakes real estate finance game of acquiring property. Furthermore, the one project I'm referring to was actually encouraged by the city to be developed, then was totally disrupted. But anyway, this is problematic. A mobile home co-op or organization could certainly, in advance of any sale, have a agreement or an option agreement to be the first right of refusal. And if the mobile home park owner decides that it's time for him to move on and to convey the property to someone else, that certainly could be an option to provide it in advance. But if a mobile home park owner should have a more capitalized potential buyer who's going to put money into the park and make it better, to have this language in this bill that allows them, without any other interest in the property, to simply intercede and have first right of refusal after a purchase agreement has been executed is just wrong. And so for this reason, Madam Chair, I'm not going to be able to support the bill today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Representative Hertas. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Hausman, Chair Hausman, for putting this bill together. I just have a simple question. You had mentioned about tiny houses, and I know my daughter and her friends, and quite frankly, I think her generation really are looking at that as a new affordable housing option. And they're not interested in really being in a big mobile home park. They're more interested in putting that on a tract of land where they could, as they put it, kind of have a communal, maybe 2 or 3 little tiny houses and a little garden and maybe a couple chickens and things. I'm just relaying my daughter's generation of needs. And so is there anything in this bill that would further the ability for, someone of my daughter's generation to actually put together a little tiny home, not a mobile home park, but a little tiny home community on a tract of land? Because it seems to me, as she was describing the impediments, there's so many ordinances across the state that prohibit that. So what is this bill doing to help move forward that initiative, since you did mention tiny houses?
Chair Hausman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill, unfortunately, does not do very much in that area. We talk about it as a housing model to encourage it, but there are cities that have made some breakthroughs. What you describe is, I think it's either Oregon or Washington, where they have communities that they build their houses around a common space, and then they share that common space in the outdoors. I've long thought where the Twin Cities Army ammunition plant used to be, we call it a TCAP, a massive amount of space. Imagine the most beautifully designed tiny house village, but massive amounts of land that then would be available for parks and walking paths and community gardens where they could grow healthy food. So we have conversations around it, but we have a long ways to go, I think, in terms of developing the tiny house concept.
Representative Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm so disappointed that there isn't something in here, because if you're talking about affordable housing, I mean, there isn't much more affordable than, I mean, it's kind of like an RV in a way, but it's, they're so interesting. They're so unique. Each one is so unique and different. And it's something that my daughter and her friends have been talking to me about for years now. And it's all the rage in their generation. So I was really hoping there'd be something in this bill that would move the needle forward. And, you know, I'm not really talking about like, you know, like a trailer home park or like a community necessarily, but just allowing them to find their own little piece of land and to just do this. But anyway, so hope's dashed again. So sorry.
Totally
Sorry,
agree.
Olivia, there's nothing in the bill for you.
Totally agree.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If can I give closing comments on our side, or is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
You are the last.
All right, thank you. Chair Hausman, it is well documented that we have costs of housing issues in Minnesota compared to our border states. So for example, when there's new construction, whether it's residential, whether it's apartments, if we can compare the cost of construction in Woodbury to Hudson, Duluth to Superior, Moorhead to Fargo, that it just costs more to build things in Minnesota than our neighboring states. We're not talking about the land costs. Obviously, that's going to be it's going to be wide variables. But what are we doing in this bill that's going to actually lower those input costs for builders? You mentioned before the housing first concerns, but it's pretty well documented that higher costs that exist just to construct something outside of land costs. What is in this bill that's going to reduce those that regulatory and governmental pressure and upward costs?
Chair Hausman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We don't, I mean, that's been a debated premise. I don't buy into it. And so it's just not an issue that I have been involved in.
Representative Garofalo.
Madam Chair, Representative Hausman, when you say that that's a debated premise, what is a debated premise?
Chair Hausman.
Simply put, the premise is that if we just reduced regulations, codes, and fees, that developers could build affordable housing. There are many, many advocacy groups in housing, including all the cities across the state, who have countered that. And so we've spent a lot of time talking about that, and it's a debate that's ongoing.
Okay, but Madam Chair, Chair Moran and Representative Hausman, but the fact that construction costs in borderings to cities in other states, there's no, I don't think there's any dispute on that though, is there? I mean, there's an agreement that if you build an identical building in Woodbury versus Hudson, you account for the difference in land costs, that it just costs more to build the same building in Wisconsin. I mean, that's not debatable, is it?
That has been disputed, yes.
That had, so Madam Chair, Representative Hausman, you said that isn't disputed?
That has been disputed. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Moran.
So, it has been disputed, yes.
Okay, so Madam Chair, Representative Hausman, how about in the Fargo Moorhead area? Are there people actually disputing that identical construction it's more costly in Minnesota than in North Dakota? Are there people who are in the housing denial business as well?
So
Chair
what
Hausman.
you're talking about, Madam Chair, I'm sorry, there's something about this remotely that it's hard for me to wait to have the chair recognize me. We are talking about one very narrow niche, which is market rate housing. That area, by the way, is not broken. People who can afford to buy market rate housing are already homeowners.
Representative Garofalo.
Madam Chair and Representative Hausman, I would dispute that characterization. We have lots of market rate housing issues. I suppose it depends upon the design of the market and what people consider to be the market. But what I'm talking about, Representative Hausman, is the fact that we have we have retail information on home sales. We have inputs of construction. Obviously, if you're building something in Fargo and you're building something in Moorhead, your labor costs should be relatively identical. The emphasis on the word should be. The product materials they're using across the other side of the river are not going to be substantially different than the ones they're using in Minnesota. And so when we have documented instances of higher costs in housing, in terms, again, not land costs, but of higher construction costs, it is interesting that there seems to be this level of housing denial, that people don't want to accept the fact that Minnesota policies drive up the cost. Now, whether those costs are justified or not, that's a debatable proposition we can all have. But we do, in the government of the state of Minnesota and our local units of government, we do make housing more expensive. That's what we do. And then what happens is the government regulations come in, drive up the cost of things, and then we want to have government come in on the other hand and subsidize it for select industries and select areas to lower the costs. And I think what you're seeing from those in the industry and you're seeing from those on our side of the aisle is an increasing concern about affordability. And so I don't think that it's, as Representative Nash mentioned, I don't think it's fair to characterize this as one issue with one group of businesses. I mean, these are documented facts. It is just, it goes beyond housing. We can't build anything in this state anymore, whether it's pipelines, energy infrastructure, housing, everything's more expensive. And so I'll be voting no on the bill today. I would encourage members to vote no. But Representative Hausman, I suspect the reason why it's difficult for us to communicate is you miss seeing my lovely face and interacting with me on a one-on-one basis. So I look forward to seeing you in person. And thank you again. Again, members, I'll be voting no.
Well, with that, Representative Garofalo, I don't think there's any further discussion to the bill. So I want to thank Chair Hausman for her work in housing and remind members why this issue is so important. It is truly important. With that, I'd like to just leave the last word with Chair Hausman.
I will just thank you for your time. I think we've used up our committee time, so I just appreciate your support.
All right. So there being no further discussion, Vice Chair Olson renews her motion that House File 1077, as amended, be recommended for placement on the General Register, and that nonpartisan staff be directed to make any necessary technical corrections. Ms. Sparkman, please take the roll.
Chair Moran?
Yes.
Moran, aye. Vice Chair Olson?
Aye.
Olson, aye. Representative Garofalo?
Garofalo, no.
Garofalo, no. Representative Albright, excused. Representative Becker-Finn?
Aye.
Becker-Finn, aye. Representative Bernardi?
Aye.
Bernardi, aye. Representative Eklund?
Aye.
Eklund, aye. Representative Hansen?
Aye.
Hansen, aye. Representative Hassan?
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Representative Hertas?
Hertas, no.
Hertas, no. Representative Hornstein?
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Representative Johnson?
No.
Johnson, no. Representative Kresha?
Grisha, no.
Kresha, no. Representative Liebling?
Aye.
Liebling, aye. Representative Lilly?
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Representative Mariani?
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Representative Marquardt?
Markward votes aye.
Marquardt, aye. Representative Miller?
Miller, no.
Miller, no. Representative Nash?
Nash, no.
Nash, no. Representative Nelson?
Nelson, I.
Nelson, I. Representative Noor.
Noor, I.
Noor, I. Representative O'Neill.
O'Neill, no.
O'Neill, no. Representative Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Representative Petersburg, excused. Representative Pinto.
Aye.
Pinto, aye. Representative Schumacher.
Schumacher, no.
Schumacher, no. Representative Schultz.
Aye.
Schultz, aye. Representative Scott.
No.
Scott, no. Representative Sundin.
Aye.
Sundin, aye. 18 ayes, 9 nays.
So there being 18 ayes and 9 nays, the motion prevails. House File 1077 as amended is recommended for placement on the general register. And nonpartisan staff are directed to make any necessary technical corrections again. Thank you, Chair Hausman.
Thank you.
So